their interaction between the skandhas. The five aggregates has interdependent. The rupa skandha is a corporal, and four namaskandhas are mental. There must be both body and mind for there to be life. When body and mind are functioning normally and harmoniously, life proceeds smoothly. The activities of the mind require knowledge of the world, which arises on the basis of sense objects of sight, of sound, of taste, of smell, of touch, through the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, and the body. The five kinds of sense objects, as well as their respective sense organs, are all physical, belonging to Rupa Skandha. Here, the focus will be on the mental aggregates, the skandha. The mind is center of the activities of life, vast, complex, and profound. It is the quality that imbues values and meanings into life, directly concerns the Buddha Dhamma, that will be dealt with the following. The four namaskandhas are closely related and exert an influence on each other. Their rising normally follows the sequence. Basa, the eye, the ear. So the form, and then comes into contact either with the eye or the ear. Now, the taste, the smell, and the touch has to arise through a contact, a sense contact also. Plus the consciousness, vinyanan, so vedana. As consciousness, there is feeling. One feels that one perceives, sanya. What one perceives that one thinks about, sankhara. For example, a man hears the sound of a bell. The ear plus the sound of the bell plus the aura of the consciousness that arises feels the sounds to be either pleasing, vedana, and perceives that it is a sound. The sound is of a bell, and that is the sound, sanya, because it recognizes it. So it becomes sanya. He likes the sound and wants to hear it again. He may think of striking the bell himself, think of going to buy a similar bell, or stealing that bell, sankhara. Note that feeling, vedana, plays an important role within this process. Sanya, the perception, will tend to know any object that produces pleasant feeling. The stronger the pleasant feeling produced by the object, the stronger the noting. The noting in the mind, ingrained in the conscious. That feeling is also the impetus for mental fabrications and actions directed at experiencing more of it. The ongoing arisen phenomenon is a simple, basic process of nature. Within that process, feeling, vedana, is the bait that seduces the mind, suggesting in sense whether the object is worth obtaining or avoiding. Sanya, so perception, is the collector of data, the raw material. Sankhara is like a person who works on the data and raw material, or possesses it for use. Vijnana is like the owner of the work. The person who is aware of everyone else's work is both the provider of the community to work and the recipient of the work results. The process is complex. It is not that Vedana, feeling, influences other aggregates, skandhas. Other aggregates or skandhas are conditioned through Vedana, through feeling. For example, the sound of the same piece of music or song might be pleasing to one person, but distressing to another. Even the same person might feel pleased on hearing the sound at one time, but at another time feel it unpleasant. As a rule, experiencing things that are for our liking, which conforms with our desires, produces pleasant feelings, while experiencing things are not to our liking, which conflict with our desires, produces unpleasant feelings. In this sense, sankhara, as liking and disliking, wanting and not wanting, loathing, these are the conditions for vedana, feeling. But perception, sanya, is also involved in this process. Sankharas condition sanya, and thereby condition vedana. So the mental processes conditions the perception, and thereby it conditions your feeling. So the mental process in our mind that arises from our perceiving it from for sanya, we're either gonna like it or not like it, and then this puts a condition to how we perceive and how we grasp it, and becomes into feeling. For example, we see the mannerism in people we like or admire, and then perceive mannerisms that are graceful or endearing. We see some mannerism in other people that we do not like and perceive those mannerisms as repugnant. This is sanya. This is the perception of it. Later, when we again see the mannerisms that we have taken a liking to and perceived to be graceful or enduring, or that we have perceived to be repugnant, as the case that it may be, we feel pleased and distressed. Vedana. This is feeling. And when we like them or hate them accordingly, sankhara. More complicated would be the case of some kinds of work and study that are inherently difficult. On our own, such tasks would be cause suffering, which would discourage people from doing them. However, people's interest can be awakened by an incentive. Such incentives may be the form of pleasant feeling during an actual work, such as some way of making the task more pleasant, or they may be something more complicated, involving the expectations for future happiness, such as perceived rewards, future success, or benefit to oneself or others, to the community at large, depending on the kind of sankhara, depending on the kind of mental processes of desire, mental processes of pride, mental processes of panya, wisdom. For example, is doing the conditioning. Incentive imbues the work being done with meaning, value, or importance, and also enables us to enjoy the work. So the sanya gives the work that is going to be done, translate us into the value of or importance and the meaning of it to us. Even though there may be some visible discomfort, the mind is suffused with gladness, and the worker or the student can continue the task with energy. When the school bell rings in the afternoon, all the students hear it, vedana or vinyan. Many of them may feel indifferent, Vedana, to the sound because they have heard it often enough before. They realize that it is the signal to go home, sanya. So, sanya plays a pivotal role of our process of mental cognition. And through memory, this perception of sanya gives rise because we remember it. For this bell to ring, if we have never heard the bell before, we would, and storing this memory for Vedana. So the process of mental koka comes with sankara and Vedana, but sanya. One of the students may feel pleased at the sound, pleasing feeling plus sankara. Sankara is our the mental processes, because he can go and play and does not have to sit uncomfortably in his seat any longer. Complex sanya. While another might feel upset, unpleasant feeling plus sankara at stopping a valuable lesson, missing out a potential benefit, and because he has to go home and face fearsome parent of the guardian, complex sanya. Basically, the process of the school bell rings in the afternoon arising in every single individual in the same way, but how we grasp it due to the situation that arises, either pleasant or unpleasant, gives the condition for our perception to perceive it in a certain way. And everyone is different depending on what their condition is at the moment. In this sense, the whole sequence that begins with vijnana, the feeling, is a process of entirely interrelated, intricate cause factors that together build up each individual personalities and determine his or her destiny and the directions in their lives. Within this process, it is sankara, that is the condition factor. Sankara represented by intention. This is a personal name, as it were, in the term karma. It is the reason that karma, action, karma is a state of action, the official or working title of sankara. So their mental processes is a conditioning factor represented by their cetana, their intentional volition. It is referred to having in such a prominent role in such statements as karma, in which devise beings, making them coarse and refined. And all beings fare according to their karma, to their intentional volition. The five aggregates and the five skandhas of grasping and clinging to it, of life, and life that is a problem. In the Buddha Sasana, dividing the Four Noble Truths, which encompass all Buddha's teaching, there is an especially noteworthy passage dealing with the five aggregates, the five skandhas. It occurs in the section on the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. So the first noble truth, the Buddha Gautama, explains or defines suffering with events that are readily seen and commonly occur in everyday life, each of which is shown to be suffering. And at the end of this list, Gautama Buddha summarizes them all into one, the five skandhas, the five aggregates of clean, upatana, or suffering. He says, monks, bhikkhus, this is the truth of dukkha. Birth is dukkha. Aging is dukkha. Death is dukkha. Association with unloved is dukkha. Separation from the loved is dukkha. Not getting what one wants is dukkha. In short, the five aggregates, the five skandhas of wanting and holding on and grasping are all dukkha. Upatana skandha. No, only does this passage show the place for the five skandhas in the Buddha Dhamma, but it also contains the noteworthy statement that the meaning of dukkha can be easily remembered with this briefest of summaries. The five aggregates, the five skandhas of clinging. What needs to be noted here are the words skandha, upatana skandha, in regard to which the following lines of the Buddha Vasana should be considered. Bhikkhus, monks, I will expound the five aggregates, the five skandhas, and the five skandhas of clinging. Listen well. What are the five aggregates? What are the five skandhas? Any form, any feeling, any perception, any mental formation, any consciousness, whether past, whether future, whether present, whether internal or whether external, whether gross or whether subtle, whether coarse or refined, whether far, whether near. All these are the five skandhas, the five aggregates. What are the five skandhas, the five aggregates of clinging? Any form, any feeling, perception, mental formation, consciousness, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, coarse or refined, far or near, that contain the outflow of asavas, the mental defilement, that are objects of upatana, clinging. These are the five skandhas, or the five aggregates. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana are the bases of Chandaraja, affection to the degree of attachment. In that Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana is the upatana to that. This is an important foundation to our understanding of the Buddha Dhamma to come. Now, the practical value of this, people have a tendency to believe that their real self exists in one form or another. Some believe it is the mind. Others believe that there is a separate self concealed within the mind, an owner or an agent that controls and directs the body and mind from another level. The teaching of the five aggregates and skandhas aims to show that we all that we call a being, an individual, a self, and so on, when taken apart, is merely the five component parts. Nothing is left what could be separated to the self. So each of those five aggregates exists only in the interdependent relationship. They are not independent and do not exist by themselves. Thus, none of the five skandhas, the aggregates, is the self either. Essentially, the teaching of the five skandhas illustrate the truth of anatta, showing that life is the coming together of various components. The combination of these components is not a self. Each of the components is not a self, and there is no self apart from them. Seeing in a way attachment to the issue of self can be uprooted. not self, anatta, can be seen more clearly when one understands the process of the five skandhas, the cycle of dependent arising, paticca samuppada, which is explained later. So the dependent arising are 12 causes and effect that goes in cessation that arises and must that come together. And the five aggregates are seen as existing in interrelationship and interdependence. Uh, Wrong views of annihilationism, known as uchita diti, and eternalism, known as sat satta diti, would not arise. Moreover, understanding all things in this way also enables a proper understanding of how the law of karma operates, the law of action, karma operates. Um, the process of interrelationship and interdependence is explained once again in the teaching of dependent arising. Furthermore, seeing things as dissecting their components as described by the five aggregates, skandhas, is a way of training of the thought processes, developing the habit of analytical thinking. When we experience and associate with things, our thoughts, responses are not limited or fixed only on their external appearance. Instead, we develop the habit of inquiring into, examining things and searching for the truth, and most importantly, seeing things objectively as they are, holding on to them with desire or clinging, which causes us to see things subjectively as we would want them to be or not to be. This last value is attainment of the object of the Buddha Dhamma, the teaching of the five skandhas and aggregates of non-attachment, related to things not through desire and attachment, but through panya. However, the Buddhist teaching for the five skandhas are usually not presented in their own, as they are simply positioned as basis for observation, and that observation must accord with other teachings, that other types of natural laws through which is to discern and examine how the five aggregates exist and function. The five skandhas and aggregates should therefore be taught in relation to the other teachings, such as the principle of anatta, not so. Before their value is practical terms is fully realized, for the reason we will have finished our discussion of the five skandhas, having established them as the basis of further examination in the light of principles that follows. So what arises, most people ask, why, what is the body? Or what is life? And the answer would be, life is a combination of elements, or a combination of five skandhas that makes up the body. And this is form and feeling, perception, and mental consciousness and consciousness. That's the most important part of what is life. It is the framework of how everything functions in our life. To understand the processes of how something functions in our life is the most important thing to it. Then we can understand what is the quality of life when we understand how it is function. That's the most important thing about this. Now, that is the five skandhas of Buddha Sasana. So rupa, the form, vedana, the feeling, sanya, the perception, sankhara, the mental processes, vijnana, the consciousness to it and to perceive it. yanto Kuti Yamale Sakinam Nama Biwatu no Ewan to Mamija Yoho, Jayasu Jayamankale, Parachita, Paranse, Se, Papi Mokare, Bese, Babutana, Papa.